Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is June the 23rd, 2022. Let's talk personality, sports, betting, boxing. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in talking about the heavyweight title fight, the rematch between champion Alexander Usyk and challenger Anthony Joshua, I believe gamblers need to, in addition to looking at the odds, right? And right now the odds are giving Joshua less than a 40% chance of winning the fight. And that's just on the Joshua side of the ledger. Right, I'm not talking about the Usyk side, which has him around a minus 200 right now. Right, you have to believe that if they fought 3 times, Usyk wins 2 of them. Right, to take Usyk straight up on his side of the ledger. But on the Joshua side, which is intriguing, they're giving the former champion less than a 40% chance of winning the fight. We'll circle back to that. But I believe in this fight more than most, you have to, number one, consider the misperception the public has here. And number 2, consider personality. Let's talk about both here. Now just imagine, and this is in reference to personality, it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Basketball. Your team is down by 1. The guy in front of you trying to stop you is Michael Jordan, one of the best defensive players in history. And he's up on you. He doesn't want to give you an inch. You're outside the 3-point line. You understand this is going to be difficult. Your team's down by 1. There are 5 seconds on the clock. Enough time for you to pass the ball if you see an open teammate. The game you've had that night is average. You're not hot. You don't feel special. Let's say the other guys on your team have had an average game. You're playing the Bulls in their prime. Right? Let's say the 72-win regular season Bulls. And they've been a problem for you. Now, you and I know, here's where personality takes over. You have Jordan, he's on you, you're around the 3-point line. You understand that if you're Steph Curry, and I believe fans know this intuitively after watching the guy's career, if you're Steph Curry and you see an inch of daylight, you're going to take the 3. Right? You know Jordan's taller than you. You know Jordan is quick off his feet with jumping ability. You know he's a great athlete. But if you're Curry, you believe in your tools. You believe in your shooting. Even in this moment, even against one of the best ever. Right? Having Jordan in front of you is inconvenient. But you understand that if you get a good look at a 3, if there's 1 inch of daylight, you're going to pull the trigger. Because that's who he is. Let's take this one step further. Let's say instead of Curry, it's Kobe Bryant. Now, while many men would look at the situation, I would say most men, and think to themselves, thank God there's enough time for me to pass the ball. I have MJ on me, the best defender on the court, right? Except perhaps, depending on your opinion, Scottie Pippen, his teammate. But let's say you have MJ. So you understand, okay, my hands are full here, right? Even though a teammate may have had the same average game I've had, that teammate is not being defended, defensed by Michael Jordan. Let me pass the ball. But you understand, if you're Kobe, again, personality takes over. It's the opposite. You look, it's MJ, and you say to yourself, thank God it's MJ. This is my moment to show the world. The best is on me. This is my chance here to show the world that I belong with the best, that perhaps I'm the best. You know, Kobe, without having an inch, would be willing to try to drive to the basket on Jordan. Kobe wouldn't be afraid of the moment. He'd be excited by the moment. His chance to close the show. What better moment than this? To do it against the best. Right? I've lived my life to win an NBA championship. Here it is, Game 7, and the world has given me this opportunity. Now you understand, and here's the public misperception, and it's huge. But people need to understand that when it comes to boxing, Alexander Usyk is Michael Jordan. Right? Just understand. You're talking about an Olympic gold medalist who is unbeaten as a pro, who was undisputed at cruiserweight, who now has a share of the heavyweight title, and who wants to be undisputed at heavyweight. Right, folks? This is simply unheard of. Right? Unheard of. Even by Michael Spinks's standards, this is simply preposterous. Right? Spinks, Olympic gold medalist, light heavyweight champion, not even cruiser, light heavyweight champion, jumps to heavy, beats Larry Holmes twice, beats Jerry Cooney, ultimately loses to Mike Tyson. Right, folks, we're talking about very rare air with Usyk. What makes Usyk really stunning is the level of opposition and the locations in which he has gotten wins. He beat Glowacki in Poland. He beat Marco Huck in Germany. He beat Maris Briedis in Latvia. He beat Murat Gassiev in Moscow. He beat Tony Bellew in Manchester. He goes up to heavyweight. He fights an active heavyweight. Who's the most aggressive heavyweight in the first few rounds these days? I would argue Derek Chisora. Usyk beats Chisora at Wembley. He beats Joshua in Tottenham. Right, so understand, to the public, they see Usyk and they think, wow, you know, this guy, cruiserweight champ, now he's out of division, fighting at heavyweight. I don't think the public understands who this guy is, what this guy has done. The fact that the guy is unbeaten right here. Just like people even in reference to Michael Jordan, don't understand that you're talking about more MVPs than LeBron James in fewer games. You're talking about 6 NBA Finals wins without ever having to go to a Game 7. Right, so just understand, Usyk is Jordan. For Joshua, who's already lost to Usyk, this is Game 7 of the NBA Finals with 5 seconds on the clock. So, let me just say, Usyk, especially after that 12th round, has to be the favorite. You got the feeling looking at that 12th round that Usyk knew several rounds before that he could stop Joshua. But Usyk also knew, and this is his pattern, and it could be a flaw, that he was winning the fight and that he could play it safe and win the fight by decision. Now understand how close he cuts it. The Derek Chisora fight had 2 judges who thought the fight was 115-113. Right? The Maris Briedis fight in Briedis' backyard was razor close. Right? Usyk is a technician who seems to believe that he's going to get a fair shake. Right? In a sport where somehow Canelo was awarded the first 4 rounds against Dimitri Bivol. Right? This is a sport that has home cooking. And Usyk, while winning the fights, I haven't seen Usyk lose a fight. But while winning the fights, Usyk just seems to assume on the road, Poland, Germany, Latvia, Moscow, Manchester, Wembley, he just assumes that he's going to get a fair shake, even when he is facing an immensely popular fighter like Anthony Joshua. Now, it might surprise some people, but the only bet I've made so far on this fight has been Joshua because of the odds. Let's discuss that. I'm going to be talking about American odds. I need for people to understand that when you see a plus 150, they're telling you that your fighter only has a 40% chance of winning the fight. That the other guy, if they fought 10 times, would win 2 more times than your fighter. The other guy would win 6 times, your fighter would win 4 times. I believe a 20% spread is huge. Now, maybe it's warranted in this fight. Right? Could be warranted. But I got a line around a plus 180. Understand, when you get to a plus 170, they're only giving your fighter a 37% chance of winning the fight. 37. Right? At a plus 180, a 36% chance of winning the fight. I believe Anthony Joshua has at least a 36% chance of winning the fight, which will take place in Saudi Arabia. Right? Joshua is a blessed puncher. Let me say this too, and I know it's counterintuitive. For some fighters, and I'm telling you the great Azuma Nelson believe this. Right? Maybe Usyk privately believes this. But for some fighters, fighting on the road is easier than fighting at home. right? When you're at home, the press is all on your back, right? You can't avoid them. These are people you know. They followed your career. You want them to be interested in your career, but they're going to ask you tough questions. Joshua, fighting at home, has to deal with the British press, right? For anyone who reads the Daily Mail, for example, online, they know that the British press is tough. They'll praise you. They'll put you on a pedestal when you're doing well. But if you slip up, you're in trouble. Then, of course, you got your buddies. You got your friends. You got your associates. You got the people who think they know you. And all of them want tickets. Right? Then you're dealing with family drama. Right? You're not on the road. You're not isolated. No, you're dealing with the same interpersonal challenges when you fight at home than you are when you're not fighting and you're just hanging out in the neighborhood. Right? And so Joshua might privately be relieved to be fighting outside the country. It worked for him in the Andy Ruiz rematch. Right? But here's the thing. The big question here is if Joshua understands that he's facing Michael Jordan and that it's now or never concerning Michael Jordan. I mean, understand. Usyk, if he beats Joshua a second time, never has to fight Joshua again. Right? Usyk's 35. Usyk could say, been there, done that. I've already beaten this guy in his backyard. Why would I need to fight him a third time? Right? Forgive this garbage truck in the background that showed up in the middle of the video. My fault. Well, anyway, let me just say this. I think the public questions whether Joshua is the guy who would take the shot with 5 seconds left against a Michael Jordan. I think the emerging public narrative is that Joshua has performance anxiety. Right? He's a talented guy. We feel he has the talent to make the shot. The question is whether the guy has the confidence to even try it. Right? He has a new trainer. Is that trainer going to have Joshua be hyper aggressive in the early rounds? Isn't Joshua's advantage here a size and punching power advantage? While the guy has the size and the punching power, when he's 100% before he starts tiring, isn't that the moment for him to come out in the first round and to try to treat Usyk like George Foreman, another big guy, we called him Big George Foreman, with punching power, treated the great Joe Frazier. Right? Frazier was a great fighter, folks. But Foreman came out and made size and punching power an issue. Can Joshua do that? I think Joshua faces a personality issue here. Understand, he has a new trainer. But is that trainer going to convince him once he starts getting countered by a complicated Jordan-esque figure who's a southpaw? Once Joshua is in the ring and he's reminded how daunting the task is of going up against Usyk, you and I know how personality operates. You can prepare to be someone else on the big day. But then when there's stress, you're going to revert back to who you were. As the great Mike Tyson put it, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right? Is Joshua going to get punched in the mouth in the first or second rounds? Understand, too, the level of mental toughness. Joshua has had many fights at home. Usyk has been on the road. So you're dealing with one guy who has benefited from being loved and having a crowd, and the other guy who has spent his career having no such expectations. So this fight is complicated. Let me make a couple of statements. Usyk, even now, is underrated. I don't believe Tyson Fury, who has had a problem with smaller, agile guys, ever faces Usyk. Usyk's a nightmare matchup for him. Right? Usyk has faster feet. Usyk has faster reflexes. Usyk has great defense and a very high boxing IQ. And Usyk, clearly with wins in Moscow, Manchester, Germany, doesn't have performance anxiety. So I believe Tyson Fury has been talking about a comeback. He and his team, in my opinion, and I'm speculating here, want nothing to do with Usyk. They're privately hoping that it's Anthony Joshua, who I believe Fury beats easily. Right? As for Joshua himself, I'll just say this. Robert Garcia's fighters have shown a lot of patience in fights. Right? Mikey Garcia, for example, is your prototypical Robert Garcia fighter. Right now, Garcia could have Joshua focused more on his power, but Joshua's not going to run across the ring and try to KO, as I believe he should, Usyk early. I believe he's going to be more measured. I believe that's his personality. This isn't Kobe Bryant. This isn't the guy thinking, oh, thank God I got this rematch. This is the dude who I need to take care of, and I am so grateful that I get an opportunity to give this man his first loss. Folks will remember me. That's not this personality. So I believe Joshua is cautious by nature. I believe his buddy, Lawrence Okolie, cruiserweight champion, would have a better shot against Usyk, right? Expect to see Okolie eventually in the heavyweight division. I believe his trainer is a trainer who works best with technicians who, of course, he has time to work with. I don't believe Robert Garcia has enough time with Joshua to reconfigure his game. I believe there's no chance that Joshua wins the fight by decision, right? Unless Joshua knocks down Usyk multiple times. Think the first Fury-Wilder fight, right? Joshua's going to have to knock down Usyk multiple times to have a chance to win by decision. So I believe Joshua's best option is to go for the KO. Now let me say this. Because situational odds were not offered when I made my early bets, and my practice is to look at odds and make bets as they're presented. I believe the value play here early is Joshua if you can get him, forget these American odds, at less than 40%. In other words, above a plus 150, in fact, we'll change it, above a plus 170, I believe Joshua is the value side of the play. The problem with betting this fight, and here's the complication, and I do expect Usyk to win the fight, is that we've seen Usyk coast to a decision in fights where the knockout's right in front of him. I believe in the first Joshua fight, The knockout was right in front of him. Understand how bad it was. In the 12th round, let's say the last 40 seconds or so, Usyk turns on the gas, and he has Joshua holding the rope, practically defenseless, up on the ropes. And even there, he takes his foot off the gas. Right? So I'm not sure. I believe Usyk, if he wants, if things go his way, if he doesn't get clubbed by Joshua, who is a blessed puncher, I believe Usyk could get a KO. My question to the public, and you let me know what you think. Public opinion is a huge factor here because it impacts odds. My question is whether Usyk is the kind of guy who, when he realizes he has a guy badly hurt, will finish him off. Now, he did so against Tony Bellew. He left no doubt, and that's a typical Usyk fight. He started the fight a little bit slow. I believe that's Joshua's opportunity. The very early rounds. Joshua should pick up the phone. He should call George Foreman. He should pick up the phone. He should call Lennox Lewis, who took out a very skilled Michael Grant early. Right? That fight's so crazy that Lewis is hitting and holding Grant. Lewis is fighting dirty in that Grant fight. Right? I believe Grant stopped in the second round. That's the blueprint Joshua needs to follow to beat Usyk. If he lets Usyk get comfortable, if he lets Michael Jordan enter the second quarter with confidence, the fight's a wrap. In other words, Joshua really has to push himself. The question for me, because I've watched numerous Usyk fights where Usyk looks like he could KO the guy, the Gassiev fight. And I believe that was a tougher fight. Usyk dominates the fight, but I believe that was a tougher opponent than Joshua, because that's an opponent who is aggressive by nature. Right? That's a self-starting opponent. That's not a cautious opponent. I believe in the Gassiev fight. Usyk's dominating. I just get the feeling that there's certain men, Marvin Hagler, right, who if they're dominating and it's like the 10th round, they would just say to themselves, all right, I'm going to try to finish this guy. Right? I've won the fight, Billy Conn, right? Joe Louis. That's the perils of this attitude, where Billy Conn thinks he has the heavyweight title won. He's winning on the scorecards. Then he decides to close the show. Only Joe had more in the tank, and Louis was a blessed puncher. Right? I wonder if, and it's an open question, I wonder if when Usyk gets to that moment, because keep in mind, Joshua's going to have to be out of character to even have a chance in this fight. Joshua's going to have to push himself in the early rounds. He can't wait until the midway point of the fight to start to push himself. Right? He's facing the champ. He's going to have to try to get the champ's title. He's going to have to show us that he has earned redemption. He can't bank on a photo finish. So Joshua's going to have to open up against a slick southpaw early, and that's going to deplete his stamina. So if Joshua isn't completely done, like he was midway through the Klitschko fight, where Klitschko lets him off the hook, right? The question's going to be, which Usyk shows up? The Usyk who stopped Tony Bellew, or the Usyk who was comfortable coasting to a decision victory against Gassiev? That's the million-dollar question. So for me, I'm going to tread lightly. I'm going to wait until the KO props come out. Then I'm going to try to pick the best KO prop. If I can get one that just says the fight won't go the distance, that might be the way to play it. Because Joshua's only chance to me is by stoppage. Right? Usyk could get a stoppage. The question is, how much risk does he want to take? Is he a Billy Conn character who says, I need the exclamation point? Or is he mindful of what happened to Billy Conn, which was Billy Conn getting KO'd? Understand, Joe Louis openly admitted that he was losing the fight. I believe the quote was, and double check me on this, he says to Conn after the fight, I gave you the heavyweight title for 13 rounds, and you didn't know what to do with it. Anyway, I expect Usyk to win the fight. Because I love great odds, the only bets I've made so far on the fight are to take Joshua up around a plus 170, plus 180. I believe that's compelling value. I do plan to hedge against it. I believe Usyk will have enough to stop Joshua. The question is whether he actually uses it. Usyk's underrated, folks. I believe if Usyk beats Joshua, Fury stays retired. That's how good Usyk is. Usyk's 35 years old. 35 years old. I'm just telling you, he is the scariest heavyweight out there. Right? From a style perspective. Right? I think Fury is the best heavyweight I've seen in a long time. But he's a big man who has had problems with smaller, agile guys. Right? Couple in the fact that Usyk, who normally fights out of a southpaw stance, wouldn't be fazed if Fury goes southpaw. And of course, Usyk spent most of his career against righties. And you understand why a Joshua is in over his head here. And you also understand why a Fury, who's unbeaten as I make this video, who's already conquered Deontay Wilder, might say to himself, okay, I'm not going to fight Usyk. The money at this point isn't worth the risk to my legacy. And understand, when we talk about legacy, we're also talking about money outside of the ring. Right? Just think about all the goodwill that a Ray Leonard has engendered. Right? Just think about how easy the money was for Mike Tyson and Roy Jones when they came back and made millions fighting each other. Right? More than a decade after Tyson had left the ring. Right? Legacy matters in boxing, especially when it's a dangerous sport. So, understand what might happen here. Usyk beats Joshua. Fury stays away from the sport. I don't think Fury wants any part of Usyk. Right? The next generation enters the building. And suddenly we're hearing about Ergovic, who I think inherits the division, Tony Yoka, right? Olympic gold medalist, right? Zheli Zhang, southpaw, huge puncher, one of boxing's most blessed punchers, right? Big baby out of Houston, right? Suddenly we're hearing about a lot of other names and possibly the return of Deontay Wilder. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.